Hello everyone and welcome to Skein Spider. This video is the second in the Pokemon Blanket Crochet Along series. If you haven't seen the first video, I would highly recommend that you check that out first. In that video, we do a thorough breakdown of the supplies and materials you need, as well as the yarn, the colors of yarn you'll need, and their abbreviations, as well as how to read the pattern. All important information. This video, however, is going to serve as the tutorial for the entire series. We're going to cover how to slip knot, how to chain, how to single crochet, how to change colors, and how to weave in your ends. If you are a more advanced crocheter, you can probably skip this one. However, if you are a newbie or a beginner crocheter, I would definitely recommend you watch it, because in the coming patterns, I won't be going over any of those techniques in detail because I'm not going to repeat myself over and over 150 times. I think that would be a bit redundant. Instead, this video will be a tutorial for all 150 patterns to come. The exception is when we finally get to the end, when we've finished all of our squares, locking the squares and joining the squares will be their own separate tutorial video, but we have a little bit of time before we get there. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Grab your hooks and let's get started. A couple of things before we get started. I am right-handed, so going forward in this tutorial, whenever I refer to my dominant hand, I am referring to my right hand. And when I refer to my non-dominant hand, I'll be referring to my left hand. The second thing that I wanted to touch on is, even though the Pokemon square patterns each call for a 3.5mm hook and 8-ply yarn, in this tutorial I am going to be using a 5mm hook and 12-ply yarn, and I'm simply using these larger / thicker sizes because it's a little bit easier to see on the camera, and when I demonstrate how to do something, I want to make it as easy as possible for you guys to see it. We're going to begin today by making a slip knot. And like with many things in crochet, there are multiple ways to do everything, but I'm going to show you the way I do it. So basically what you're going to do is pinch the tail end of your working yarn, and the working yarn is just the bit of yarn that is attached to your skein. So this is my working yarn here, and I like to pinch it about 10 to 12 centimeters up from the bottom of the yarn here. The reason for this is when we finished crocheting our, in this case, Pokemon square, we're going to need to weave this end in to hide it. And having a bit of extra length makes that easier to do. So about 10 to 12 centimeters up from the end, pinch that. And you're going to pinch that with your dominant hand. After I've done that, I'm going to take my left hand and extend my index finger with the finger pad facing towards me. I'm going to take the working yarn, which is in my right hand. I'm going to start from in front of the finger pad, and then I'm going to wrap the yarn around behind my finger. So I'm going behind my finger, then back up and around the front until the yarn creates an X. With the thumb of my left hand, I'm just going to pinch that X so it doesn't come undone. And at this point, you should have a loop of yarn around your finger. So if I turn my finger, you can see the loop's gone all the way around. What I'm going to do at this point is, from behind my index finger, I'm going to grab the back of the loop. You can see it there. Grab the back of the loop, and I'm going to bring that up and over the tip of my finger. I'm still pinching where the yarn is crossed, but I've taken the loop off my finger. The tail end of the yarn, the end bit here, I'm going to pass that under and behind the loop I just took off my finger. So if we turn on the side again, you can see this bit of yarn is behind the circle. So I'm turning back to the front now. I want to reach in to the center of that loop, so this loop here, and pull up the end of yarn that I just passed under it. This section here, I'm just going to pinch that and gently pull it up until it forms its own loop. So I'm turning again. You can see how I formed a little loop. It's in this little loop that we're going to place our crochet hooks. So I can move my thumb from where I pressed against the crossed yarn now. I'm going to take my crochet hook and insert it straight into that loop I just pulled up. Then I'm going to grab the two ends that are hanging down, the working yarn, which is still attached to my skein, and the tail end here. I'm going to grab those and pull on them gently, and that will close up this little knot here, so it'll just tighten that up a little bit. However, at this point, the loop on our hook is still very loose. You can see that there. We want to tighten that up against the head of the hook here. To do that, you're going to grab the tail end and just gently tug on that. And as you do, that little knot we've just made will pull up against your hook. And that is how you make a slip knot. You're ready to go. What I will do is go through that once more a little bit quicker. So we're going to start with the yarn in our dominant hand. We're going to wrap it around the index finger of our non-dominant hand, pinch where they cross over, pull the loop off the tip of your finger, pass the tail end behind that loop so you can see it in the middle. You're going to pinch that section from the front and then pull it up. So we've created a second loop. Insert your hook into that second loop and then gently tug on both ends so this knot tightens up. And then to tighten the actual loop against the hook, you're going to pull on the tail end. So I'm going to pull on that gently and that tightens up. After we've made our slip knot, we can begin chaining. To begin chaining, what you're going to do is pinch the knot below the loop around your hook between the fingers of your non-dominant hand. And then to create a chain, we're going to yarn over and pull through. To yarn over, you're going to push the head of your hook under the yarn, pick it up with the head, that's yarning over, and then pull through the loop on your hook. Again, we're going under the yarn from the front, under out to the back, turn the hook so the head picks up the yarn, and then pull it back through the loop. Again, go under the yarn from in front to behind, pick up the yarn with the head of your hook, and then pull it through. And as we do this, you can see we create chains. So I've done 3 so far. What we're going to do in this tutorial is actually create a little practice square. We're going to use that to practice our single crochet, our color changes, and how to weave in our ends. For that square, we're going to do 10 single crochet across by 10 rows. If we want to make our project 10 single crochet across, that means we're going to have to chain 11 to begin with. But before we get to that stage, we're just going to practice a few more chains. As you continue chaining, what you will notice is obviously that the piece is going to get longer. When we started, we gripped our little knot down the bottom here between our fingers. But as your chain continues to get longer, that gets a bit harder to do, and you end up losing control of your tension. What you want to do to combat this is, as you continue chaining, you actually move your fingers up the chain. I started down the bottom here, but as I move, I want to move my fingers up. So if I do 2 more chains, 1, 2, after that, I'm going to move my fingers up again and do some more chaining. Now, the number of chains you do in between moving your fingers is entirely up to you, but I tend to go with between 2 or 3. It just really depends on the yarn weight and hook size I'm using. Again, I'm going to do 2 more chains, and I'm going to move those fingers up and just continue chaining. If you need to practice, just keep doing some more chains until you get the hang of it. But when you do, what we're going to do is take out, well, I'm going to do it because I need this color later. Take out the chain we've just done. And now we're going to start on our little practice square. To make our practice square, we're going to need 3 colors. I'm going to be using green, red, and blue. And we're going to begin by making a slip knot, as we learnt to do before. And then we're going to chain 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I mentioned earlier that our little practice piece here was only going to be 10 stitches across, and the reason we chained 11 is because we need to start working in the second chain from the hook. If I start working in the first chain here, what I'm essentially going to do is push the loop that's on my hook straight out of that chain, and it's going to undo it. So I've just dropped down from 11 to 10 stitches. And again, if I go into the loop, the first loop from the hook, I'm going to push the loop out, and I've just undone my chain. Let me rechain those. So the reason we start in the second chain from the hook is to avoid that, to avoid undoing our work. The next bit we need to cover is where we work into. If you look closely at your chains that you've made, they each look like a little V shape. You've got a part at the top here and a part at the bottom here, and that creates a V. So in this chain we've made, we should have 11 V's. The part of the V at the top here, that's furthest away from us, that is called the back loop. The part of the V down the bottom here that is closest to us, that is called the front loop. For this first row that we're going to do, the first row that we crochet after we've made our chain, we're only going to be working into the back loop. So what you want to do is take your hook. We're skipping over the first chain here because we don't want to undo our work. We're going to work into the second chain, which is this one, the second V, one V here. This is the second chain from the hook, and we're going into the back loop of that chain. This is the back loop furthest away from us. This is the front loop that's closest to us. We're going to push the head of our hook under the back loop, and from here we can begin our single crochet. To do that, we're going to yarn over, and we're going to pull through the back loop, very much like how we made our chain, but at this point we should have 2 loops on our hook. So we have the original loop that was on our hook and the loop that we just pulled through by yarning over and pulling through. To complete our single crochet, you're going to yarn over once more, and you're going to pull this yarn through the 2 loops on your hook, through the first one and then through the second one. And that's our first single crochet done. We're then going to go into the back loop of the next chain, go into that, yarn over and pull through. And at this point again, we should have 2 loops on our hook. You're going to yarn over once more and pull through both of those loops. Into the back loop of the next chain, we're going to repeat the process. Go into the back loop, yarn over and pull through. You should have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both of those loops. And that is 3 single crochet complete. You're going to continue all the way down, and we should be doing 10 single crochet in total. We've done 3, let's do number 4. Go into the back loop, yarn over, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through both. Five, 6, 7, 8, 9, and into the last back loop, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through. And once we've finished that, we should have 10 stitches or 10 little V's all the way across. Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And that is row 1 of our little practice square complete. Row number 2 is also going to be crocheted in the green yarn, and it's in row number 3 where we're going to begin our color changes. Row number 2 of our practice square is also going to be crocheted in the green. However, in row number 3, that's where we're going to begin our color changes. But we're not going to worry about that just yet. We'll do row number 2 first. To begin a new row, what you want to do is just chain 1. So after I've done my 10th single crochet, or the last single crochet in your row, whichever number that may be on whatever project you're working on, we're going to chain like we did when we were making our original foundation chain. So we're going to yarn over and just pull through the loop on your hook. We're then going to turn our work, and the way I like to remember this is I'm turning the page in a book. So I'm just flipping it over like that. And we're again going to be starting in the second stitch from the hook, because the first stitch, let me bring this in close, here is the chain we just made. And if we work into that, we're going to have the same problem that we would have had if we worked into that 11th chain we made originally when we were beginning our work. So we're going to work into the second stitch. When we were doing row 1, we only worked into the back loop of the chain that we made, but from this point forward, we're going to work all of our rows into both the front loop and the back loop. So we're going under the entire V of our chain. Looking at your piece front on like this, it can be difficult to see the V from here. So if you need to, just tilt your work back a little bit until the V's become visible. You can see them all here. So what I'm doing, I'm going into the second stitch from the hook. I'm skipping the chain that we did at the end of the row, and I'm going to push my needle under both the front and the back loop. So if I bring this nice and close, I've gone under the front loop, which is here, and the back loop, which is here. Once you've done that, you're then going to yarn over and pull through. So you're left with those 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through both of those loops to complete the single crochet. We're going to repeat the process on the next stitch. Push your needle through under both the front and back loop, yarn over, pull through, have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through, and that's my second single crochet. We're going to continue doing this all the way along, and once again we should have 10 single crochet to do in total. Inserting my hook under the front and back loop of stitch number 3, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through the 2 loops. Number 4, under the front and back loop, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops, yarn over, pull through both of those. And I'm just going to continue down until I've done all 10 of my single crochet. At the end of row 2, I'm just going to double check and make sure I do still have 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We're going to start row number 3 in a moment, and row number 3 has our first color change. Before we actually get into that though, what I want to do is just briefly go over the types of color work you can do in crochet and which ones I'll be using in the upcoming patterns. So there's a number of different color work techniques you can do with crochet. There's tapestry, intarsia. I think it's intarsia. Intarsia is one of those words that I always think I pronounce it wrong. So I think it's pronounced intarsia. There is Fair Isle, mosaic, I think like interlocking. What I'm going to be doing in these squares is basically using a combination of tapestry and Fair Isle colorwork techniques. Tapestry is where we're using, it's usually 2 colors, but you can probably do 2 or 3, and you work over the yarn as you're using it. Fair Isle is where you drop a color after you've done a color change, and then you pick it up later and it creates, hang on, I'll show you. And it creates a visible line of unused yarn or unworked yarn at the back of your work here. And these are called floats. So we're going to use a combination of those. Now, with me, I don't care if the back of my work is a mess because I do plan to put a backing on this blanket when it's finished. However, if that is something that you don't want, you're either going to have to use a different color technique or you're going to have to weave in lots and lots and lots of ends, okay? So you'll need to decide which technique works best for you. For row 3, which is our first color change row in our practice square, I'm going to demonstrate a tapestry color change, and then I'm going to show you the Fair Isle one a bit later on, and I'm going to explain why I'm using these in conjunction with each other. So what we're going to do is begin row 3 like we began row 2 by chaining, chain 1, turning your work, and again I'm turning this like I would the page of a book. And the pattern for row 3 is going to be 4 single crochet in green, 2 single crochet in red, and then 4 single crochet in green. What we're going to do is begin by doing the first 3 single crochet in green, and then in the 4th single crochet I'm going to show you how to change color. Again, we're starting in the 2nd stitch from the hook. We're going to do our first single crochet, 1, our 2nd single crochet in green, 2, and our 3rd single crochet. Whenever we're changing color in these Pokemon squares, you always change color in the last stitch. The row 3 pattern red, 4 single crochet in green, and that means we're going to change color on the 4th and last single crochet. To do that, you go into your stitch, yarn over and pull through like you would doing any other single crochet. However, instead of finishing the single crochet like we normally would, we would normally yarn over at this point and then pull the yarn through the 2 loops on our hook. Instead, what we're going to do to change color is bring in our new color, and you're going to line that up behind the head of your hook, like so, so you can see that behind. We're going to pick up the working yarn, the yarn attached to our skein of our new color. Then we're going to yarn over in that and pull through the 2 loops on our hook. So we begin the single crochet in the previous color and we finish the single crochet in our new color. Because I'm doing tapestry crochet at this point, what I'm going to do is work over my green yarn. I also like to work over the end of my new color to secure the end. You don't have to do this bit. We can weave this end in later, but that is something you can do. So I'm working with my new color, which is red, and for this part I need to do 2 single crochet. I'm going to go into the next stitch, and at this point, because I'm doing tapestry crochet, I want to make sure that my green yarn or my previous color is on top of the head of my hook so I can work over it. I'm going to yarn over and pull through so I have 2 loops on my hook. Again, that green yarn should be between my 2 loops and the working yarn of my new color. And then I'm going to yarn over, pull through the 2 loops to finish my single crochet. That was the first single crochet in the red. Because we are only doing 2 single crochet in the red, I'm going to have to swap colors again. Once more, I go into the stitch, and at this point I'm still working over the green yarn, so that should be on top of my hook. You can see it here. I'm going to yarn over and pull through with the red. So I have 2 loops on my hook, but because I need to change color, I'm going to drop my red yarn, pick up my green, and I'm going to yarn over, pull through, and finish the stitch in my green. At this point, we should have 4 stitches left, because again, the pattern was 4 single crochet in green, 2 in red, and 4 in green. And it's at this point that I'm not going to be using the tapestry crochet technique. I've dropped my red yarn and I'm going to leave it there. So when I finish my 4 single crochet in the green, I'm not working over any yarn, I'm just crocheting in the green. And that is row 3 complete. Going forward, and this will be the same when we get to our larger Pokemon squares too, I use tapestry crochet very sparingly. And the reason for that is because with our actual Pokemon squares, we use so many different colors. If you work over multiple strands of yarn, so here I just worked over the green yarn as I was using my red, but in the Pokemon squares, we may be using 5, 6 colors or more at once. If you work over that many strands of yarn all at once, it's going to bow your work. You're going to end up with a little bump here that'll just carry on through your work, and we don't really want that. So I tend to use this tapestry crochet technique if I'm doing a couple of quick color changes in succession and they're the same color. So if I was doing, say, green, red, I would carry those yarns with me for those stitches. When there are larger color changes between, I don't use the tapestry crochet then, because I want to avoid that bowing. So as we continue to crochet the Pokemon squares, it really is going to be up to you to use your best judgment which color change technique you want to use. So I would recommend reading the pattern in advance before you begin to crochet it, and sort of pinpoint those areas where you can use tapestry crochet, and for the other areas we're going to use the Fair Isle technique. But we'll discuss that a little bit more as we continue to crochet this practice piece. Now we're going to be starting row 4, and in row 4 we're going to start working with 3 colors. So we're going to bring in our 3rd color. For me, that's going to be blue. Row 4 reads 3 single crochet in green, 1 single crochet in red, 2 single crochet in blue, 1 single crochet in red, and then 3 single crochet to finish. Like we've done previously, we're going to start our row by chaining 1 and turning our work. And we're going to begin with our 3 single crochet, remembering that on the 3rd, that's where we need to change color. So I'm going to do 1 starting in the 2nd stitch from the hook, then my 2nd, and then in the 3rd I'm going to change color. To do that, I'm going to go into my stitch, yarn over, pull through, leave the 2 loops on my hook, and I'm going to finish in my next color, which is red. Now with the red, I did drop my red yarn, so all I'm going to do is just pick that up from where it is hanging. So it's hanging here after I finished with it on my 2nd red stitch in row 3. I'm just going to pick that up. I'm going to bring that up to the head of my hook. Nope, I don't want you on there yet. There we go. And I'm going to yarn over and finish the stitch in red. You can see this leaves a little bit of yarn visible, but as I said previously, this doesn't matter to me because I'm backing my blanket, so you're not going to see the ugly color changes at the end. If this does matter to you, What I would recommend you do is, instead of just dropping your yarn, leaving it there and then picking it up later, I would recommend cutting that yarn, leaving enough tail that you can weave it in, you've got some length to work with, and then bringing it back in like we did originally when we first joined our red yarn. This will stop you having these little bits of yarn everywhere. After we've picked up our red yarn and we've changed color, we're then going to crochet the next part of row 4, which is 1 single crochet. Now, because we're only doing 1 single crochet, that means we have to change color in this one as well. So we're going to go into the next stitch. And because we're only working with the 2 colors at this point, I am going to carry my green yarn. So I'm doing a bit of tapestry color work here. And that means I need to work over it. So I'm going into the next stitch, making sure I'm working over the green yarn. I'm going to yarn over, pull through. So I have 2 loops on my hook. But because I'm only doing the 1 single crochet, I need to change color to my blue at this point. So I'm going to drop my red yarn and I'm going to bring in my blue. Another thing that you also need to be aware of is what is the front and what is the back of your work. I want all my ugly ends to be at the back of my work so I can hide them when I put my backing on. And that means I need to know which is actually the back of my work. The way I like to think of it is this tail end that we left from our slip knot. I know when my work is facing forward, so the front of my work is facing me, that this tail should be in the bottom left corner. So this part is the front of my work. Because it is in the bottom right corner at the moment, I know that this is the back. So I'm going to have my blue yarn at the back here. When I've got that lined up, I am going to yarn over in the blue, pull through the red stitches. Pull through the red stitches and finish off. Because I'm only working with 3 colors at the moment, that's not too many, and I need to swap back to the red and then the green after I finish crocheting my blue single crochet, I am going to be working over both of these ends, so tapestry crochet again. And I'm going to carry them with me, so I need to do 2 single crochet in the blue. I'm going to go into the next stitch. And again, I'm going to be working over the green and red yarn. Yarn over, pull through, 2 loops, finish the stitch. And because the second blue stitch is the last of my blue color change, I'm going to swap color back to the red there. So I'm going into the next stitch. I'm going to yarn over, pull through. I'm going to drop my blue yarn. And I'm dropping it at the back of my work. I want to stay on the back of my work. I'm going to pick up the red, and then I'm going to finish the stitch in the red. For the next stitch, I'm going to continue working over the green yarn, but I'm dropping the blue because I need to finish this row in the green yarn, but the blue I don't need until the next round. So I'm going to drop that, and I'm going to pick that back up when I need it in row 5. So the next stitch is 1 red single crochet, and like we did before, because we're only crocheting 1, we're going into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, but we're not going to finish this stitch in red. Instead, we are going to drop the red now, pick up our green, finish the stitch in the green, and then finish our row with our 3 green single crochet. 1, 2, and 3. For row 5, we're again going to begin by chaining 1 and turning our work. And this is the front of our work now. The tail end is down the bottom, so I'm going to keep all my ends at the back here. Row 5 reads 2 single crochet in green, 1 single crochet in red, 4 single crochet in blue, 1 single crochet in red, and then to finish 2 single crochet in green. Starting in the second stitch from the hook, we're going to do 1 green single crochet. In the next stitch, we're going to do our second single crochet, but we need to change color in this one. So we're going to yarn over, pull through, have 2 loops on our hook, At this point, I'm going to drop the green, then pick up my red and finish the stitch in that. This time, because the gap between my greens is a little bit larger, I'm not going to work over it. I'm going to drop my green yarn. I'm going to continue doing my other color changes, and when it's time to do the green stitches at the end here, I'm going to pick it back up. So we're doing a bit of Fair Isle color work here. So I'm going to leave my green for now. I'm going to go into the next stitch to do my single red single crochet. Only one single crochet, that's probably worded a little bit better. So we're going to go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, have 2 loops on our hook, and because we're only doing one, I'm going to drop this. I'm going to pick up my blue. So from where we dropped it before, I'm going to pick it up. You can see it there. I'm going to finish the stitch in my blue. And because the gap between my 2 red stitches is smaller than the gap between my green stitches, I am going to work over my red yarn here. So I'm doing a bit of tapestry. So you can see how I'm swapping back and forth between the two. I'm going to go into the stitch. So that's my first blue, second blue, third blue, and this is going to be my 4th blue, so I'm going to be changing color. Go into the stitch, yarn over, pull through, 2 loops on my hook, drop my blue yarn at this point. I'm going to pick up the red that I worked over, and I'm going to finish in that. The next stitch is going to be 1 red single crochet, go into the stitch, yarn over and pull through, have 2 loops on your hook, but because we're only doing the 1 single crochet, we're not going to finish off. Instead, I'm going to drop my red, bring in my green, so you can see the little float of green yarn here. It's going all the way across my work. And when you do this, you want to make sure you don't pull this too tight, because if I pull this too tight, if I pull it really tight, my work's going to curl in on itself. We don't want that to happen. You just want to run this bit of yarn gently along the back of your work and then pick it up. So you're not pulling it too tight. You don't want to distort your work. We're going to finish this round with our 2 green single crochet. Get that blue out of the way. 1 and let's get in there, 2. Both rows 6 and 7 are the same. They're each going to be chain 1, turn your work, 1 single crochet in green, 1 single crochet in red, 6 single crochet in blue, 1 single crochet in red, and then 1 single crochet in green. We're going to chain 1, turn our work. In the second stitch from the hook, we're going to do our first green single crochet. And again, because we're only doing 1, we're going to yarn over, pull through, so we have the 2 loops on our hook. We're going to drop the green, bring in our red. I'm going to yarn over and finish the stitch in red. And I'm dropping my green. I'm not going to work over it this time. In the second stitch, I'm going to do my single red single crochet. I did it again. One red single crochet. Yarn over and pull through so you have 2 loops on your hook. And again, we're only doing the 1, so we're not going to finish. We're going to drop our red, bring in our blue, yarn over and finish the stitch in that. And then we're going to do 6 single crochet in blue. And this time I'm again working over my red yarn because I'm going to carry that with me across to the next red color change. So I'm going to go under that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And because this is the last blue stitch, I am not going to finish in the blue. I'm going to drop my blue yarn, pick up my red, finish the 6th blue stitch in that, and then crochet my single crochet in red. So that's 1, I don't finish the stitch. My last single crochet is going to be in green. But let's just say that this gap between the green stitches is too wide to bring my yarn. I don't want to have it too wide because that increases the chances of, distorting your work like we talked about before. What I'm going to do at this point is cut my green yarn, and when I cut it, I want to leave a tail that's long enough that I won't have any trouble weaving it in later on. So I've cut my green yarn, so now my green yarn is free, and what I'm going to do is reintroduce it. So I'm going to grab my green yarn that I just cut, bring that back in, and again I want to start with a tail that's long enough that I can weave it in, and we're essentially joining it like we did originally with our red yarn. I'm going to line up the green yarn I just cut with my red single crochet that I've done, and I'm going to finish that single crochet in my green. I'm going to drop my red yarn, and I'm going to finish row 6 with 1 green single crochet. This square is pretty small, so I could have brought my green yarn over and finishing that with no problems. That would have been okay. The reason I showed you how to cut and reattach it though is because you will run into this problem with the Pokemon squares. So if I bring my Venusaur back in, you can see that he or she or they, I'm not sure, but you can see that it's outlined in black. So that means when we first start, we start with our background color, which is the blue, then we swap to black, we do all the color changes in between, and then we swap back to black again. With the rows that have shorter color changes, so I'd say these ones down here, and even the ones up the top here, there's less color changes in the row, you can fairly easily drop your black yarn and then pick it up again when you need it. So after I crocheted this single crochet, for example, I dropped it to do the blue and white color changes, and I just picked it back up again to do the next black single crochet. However, when you get to, say, this section here, that's a lot of color changes in between. And this is where I use the cut and reattach technique. If I pulled that black yarn from this point all the way across to this point, that makes the chances of me distorting my work by pulling it too tight go up. Again, like I said before we started our practice square, you are going to have to use your best judgment on some of these, but I would recommend if you get beyond maybe about 10 or so stitches or color changes in between your black yarn, I would use the cut and reattach method. But again, it's up to you. Row 7 is the same as row 6. We're going to chain 1, turn our work. We're going to start with 1 green single crochet, and I'm not going to finish it because I'm going to pick up my red, finish off. I'm going to drop my green, do 1 single crochet in red. Again, I only have the 2 loops on my hook. I'm not going to finish. Instead, I'm going to drop the red, pick up the blue, and finish in that. For this next section, I'm going to work over my red to carry it with me. And I'm going to do 6 blue single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Don't finish the last one. Instead, drop your blue, pick up your red, and finish in that. I am going to do 1 single crochet in the red so I don't finish it. And this time I'm not going to cut my green yarn. I showed you guys how to do that. So this time I'm just going to bring it across. Again, I'm running it gently along the back of my piece. I'm not pulling on it really hard. Just ease up with your tension on that a little bit. I'm going to finish in the green and finish off row 7 with 1 green single crochet. There we go. For row 8, we're going to chain 1, turn our work. This time we're doing 1 single crochet in green, 1 single crochet in red, 2 single crochet in blue, 2 single crochet in red, 2 single crochet in blue, 1 single crochet in red, and then finally 1 single crochet in green. Start off with the 1 single crochet in green. Again, we don't finish this, we drop our green, pick up our red, finish off. We're going to do 1 single crochet in red, drop the red. We're not finishing in that, instead we're going to finish our single crochet in the blue. And for the next series of color changes, I'm basically doing red, blue, red, blue, red. So I'm going to be carrying both my red and blue yarn with me. Because I'm using blue next, I'm going to be carrying the red. I'll do 2 single crochet in blue. 1 and 2. Now I've worked over my red, and on this second stitch I need to switch back to the red. So I will drop that, bring the red in to finish the stitch. Then I need to do 2 single crochet in red, and because I'm using red, this time I'm working over the blue. 1 and 2, don't finish in the red, drop that, pick up the blue and finish in that. I'm doing 2 single crochet in blue, and once more I'm working over the red. 1 and 2, don't finish in blue, pick up the red, finish in that, and I'm going to do 1 single crochet in the red. Now we've got 1 single crochet to go, and that is our green. For this part I'm going to demonstrate the cut and reattach again. So I'm picking up my green yarn from where I dropped it over here. I'm going to cut it and leave a decent length of a tail so I can weave it in. Drop that. Take my newly cut green yarn, I'm going to bring that back in, line it up next to my red to finish that 1 stitch in, and then my final stitch is going to be green. For row 9, we're going to chain 1, turn our work, and this time we're going to do 2 single crochet in green, 2 single crochet in red, 2 single crochet in green, 2 single crochet in red, and then 2 single crochet in green to finish. So we're not using our blue anymore. I'm just going to pick that up. I'm going to cut that yarn. Once more, I'm leaving a fairly long tail so it's easy to weave in. I'm going to pick up my green. I'm going to do the first 2 single crochet, 1, and this one is where I change color. So there we go, don't finish that stitch. Instead, I'm going to pick up my red yarn and finish in that. Because this row, row 9, is basically just alternating between red, green, red, green, red, green, I'm going to carry my colors with me like I did in this part of row 8 where we were doing red, blue, red, blue, red. So I've done my first 2 green stitches. I need to do 2 in red, and I'm going to work over my green yarn. Again, that is the tapestry crochet method. So 1, 2 in red, don't finish. I'm going to pick up my green and finish in that. And then I need to do 2 stitches in green, and again I'm working over my red yarn. Second, don't finish. Pick up the red. 2 in red, 1 and 2. Not going to finish in that. Instead, I'm going to finish in the green and do my final 2 single crochet in green. Row 10 is going to be our final row, and all we're going to do is 10 single crochet across. Before I do that, I'm going to cut my red yarn, and again I'm leaving a fairly long tail. And as we start row 10, I'm going to begin showing you ways to deal with all these ends we have left over. So for the red one that I've just cut, what I'm going to do is first I need to begin row 10 by chaining 1 and turning. I'm actually going to work over this, and I'm going to do that in the same manner that I did as I was carrying my yarn while changing colors. So I'm going to do my first single crochet in green, But starting from the second, I'm going to work over this red yarn. So I'm going to do my second single crochet, but I have my red yarn in between so I can work over it. And I'm going to continue to do that for several stitches. And the reason I did that is because that is one way to secure an end. So I'm going to just finish off with my last two, 1 and 2. And at this point, our practice square is finished. So I'm going to cut a tail for that as well. And now this looks pretty ugly, so we need to deal with all these ends. The red one, as I just mentioned, I worked over. So all I'm going to do with that is just pull that a little bit taut and then snip that off, because that's nice and secure because I single crocheted over it here. With all my other ends, what I'm going to have to do is weave them in with a needle. To do that, you're going to grab your needle, you're going to take an end, and you're going to thread it through your needle. And there are a couple of ways you can go about this, but I'll show you the method that I like to use. Now, the first thing is we want to be weaving our ends in the back of my work. As I mentioned before, I know that this is the front because the tail end from my slip knot is in the bottom left corner. And because I want to keep track of which is the back, I'm going to leave this end for last. So I'm going to flip my piece over and make sure I weave in on the back. Also telling is if you use the fair isle technique is you'll have your floats at the back here. If you look closely at your work, you can see that your stitches, or the backs of your stitches, have their own little V shapes. So we talked about the V shapes of the front and the back loop, but if you look at them from front on, you can see both V shapes, but also upside down V shapes, depending on the part of the stitch. You can work through any of these, it doesn't matter. So what we're going to do is insert our needle once it's threaded behind those little V's from the backs of our stitches. So you're just weaving it through the yarn. The important thing here is that you don't want to be able to see your needle from the front. So if I flip my work over, you can't see the blue of my needle, and that's good because our yarn that we're weaving in will be hidden. I start off by going in one direction. I'll only do this for a few stitches. So I'm going to pull my needle through and pull the yarn through. To secure this section, what I like to do is after I've worked through the stitches and then pulled it through as I've done here, I go back around one of the legs of the last V I worked through. So I'm going to come in really close. And you can see this little blue V here is the last one I worked through. And this bit here is sort of the last leg of the V, or maybe arm is a better word. So there's one arm here and one arm here. I'm going around the second arm, the last one. I'm going to loop back around. So I'm going to go back around, insert my needle back behind the stitch, still working in the same direction I was, as sort of like a little knot. So I'm going to wrap around there. From this point, that's out of focus now. There we go. From this point, I'm going to jump down a row. So jump down a row and work back in the opposite direction. So I worked across towards my left. I'm now going to jump down one row and work back in this direction towards my right. So I'm going behind the V's again. And usually I go across maybe 5 or 6, but because this is a smaller piece, I'm doing less stitches. And again, I'm going to flip my work over and make sure I can't see my needle from the front. And I can't, so I'm just going to pull that yarn through. And then I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to go back into the arm or the leg of the last V I worked in and loop-de-loop it, just to give my weaving in a little bit of extra security. After I've done that, so my loop-de-loop, I'm just going to go back through the row I worked in. just a couple of stitches this time. And after you've done that, you can snip off the end of your tail. So we get rid of that. And you're going to do this for all of your tail ends, including the ones at both the starting point where we did our slip knot and the end where we've just cut the yarn when we finish. Okay, so I've weaved in most of my ends, but I left these two because I wanted to demonstrate something else. Occasionally mistakes happen, so you may end up cutting a tail way too short to weave in, or when you introduce a new color, you may leave a very short tail at the start, you know, forgetting to leave a extra long bit to weave it in. When that happens, it can be really difficult to weave these ends in because they're so short, there's not much to work with. What I would recommend you do if that happens is try it with a smaller needle, but in some cases even that won't be enough. What I do in this case, and I don't really recommend this technique to finish off because it's not very secure, but I'm going to be honest, I've used it because sometimes I've had no other choice. The pieces were just too small and I didn't know any other way to secure them. So what you can do in that case is if the pieces are fairly close together, so in this case they are close together, if they're on opposite sides of your crochet piece, I wouldn't recommend this, but if they're close together, it's okay to do, and that is just tie them off. So I'm going to take these two ends and put a few knots in. You want to be careful not to pull the original knot too tight, because if you do, it's going to distort your piece again. It's going to pull it really tight and you're going to end up with a little fold in your work, and again we don't want that, so I'm just going to secure it 3 or 4 times. If the knot isn't staying, if it starts to come undone, what I have done in the past is grabbed a bit of Mod Podge or craft glue, anything that dries clear, and just use a little paintbrush and put a tiny dab of glue on that to try and keep it from unraveling. But again, this technique, I don't know if I'd call it a technique, but whatever, we'll stick with it. I would only do in sort of a worst case scenario if you've got no other options to secure your end, because as I've said, it's not that secure. Once that's tied off, what you can do is just cut it short. Again, if you've got a little bit to work with, you can take these two ends and try and weave them in through the backs of your stitches, but I am showing you this option for those cases where weaving in is not really something you can go with. So tying off can get you out of a pickle, but again, be aware that it isn't very secure. I would not recommend it for finishing off all of your ends. Only use it in a worst case scenario. But with that, we have finished our tutorial for the Pokemon Blanket series. Using those techniques, the tapestry and the Fair Isle in conjunction with each other is how I've made all of the squares so far, and how I will continue to make the other squares in the future. And the last thing I want to say before we finish up here is when it comes time to making our Pokemon squares, and the next video we're going to be starting with Bulbasaur, please have a quick look through the pattern first so you can sort of get organized, get your colors ready, work out what sort of color work technique you're going to go with. Do all that stuff in advance. It does make the process a bit easier. But other than that, we are good to go. We will be starting our Pokemon blanket finally. I will see you all next week with another video. Thank you for watching.